have one of my favorite people and probably also the most enthusiastic person I know. Please welcome on stage Adam Savage.
I wanted to walk you through a deconstruction of inspiration, and I wanted to start with one of my all-time favorite filmmakers, who was Black Frame, Stanley Kubrick. Yeah, I have found a lot of inspiration from Stanley Kubrick over the years. I love, in particular, that his movies always show me a new way of looking at something. And he, in particular, if you want to Google something great, Google Stanley Kubrick's early photographs for Look magazine in the 40s and 50s in New York. And you'll see some gorgeous stuff. He had an incredible eye, even then, even as a teenager, even as a young man. And this is one of my favorite depictions of this. This is a self-portrait Stanley took with his daughter. Clearly, Jack Nicholson, one of the biggest movie stars in the world at the time, believes that his picture is being taken. But he is merely set dressing so that Stanley and the daughter he loves so much, he's a very, very devoted family man, can take a picture of themselves. And that, I love that. So a few years ago, the Stanley Kubrick family released a bunch of his material into a museum exhibit that has been traveling around the world. And I first intersected it at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art at Lackawanna a few years ago. And it was an intense and amazing exhibition. I saw it 3 different times. I spent a total of probably 7.5 hours in there. And it is full of props, drawings, all sorts of ephemera from Stanley's films, including costumes, including set designs, behind-the-scenes footage that no one's ever seen before, notebooks, handwritten things from Stanley. He was very meticulous about destroying a lot of the stuff that he used to make movies because he considered that the movie should stand on its own. But for those of us who love all the ephemera and the pieces of the movie-making process and of the making process in general, it's an incredible education. There's the typewriter from The Shining. I'm here to tell you that's not, in fact, the exact typewriter from The Shining, but it is the same make and model. I was a little upset when I found that out. This is the card catalog from his unreleased movie, Napoleon. As part of the research, he brought together some historians from a local university, and they spent, I don't even know how long, assembling every single known moment of Napoleon's life, chronicled by any biographer or any first-hand account of him, arranged in both alphabetical and chronological order, so that Kubrick could write a script. But this is the type of obsession that really speaks deeply to me. And then I came across this, Major Com's Survival Pack for Dr. Strangelove. And this is one of those moments. I'm in a museum and I saw that and I went, oh, that's my next project. That's the next thing I'm going to look. They have the pill bottles. Oh my goodness, there's rubles, there's money, there's all. And this is the great moment towards the end of Dr. Strangelove, where Slim Pickens and his scrappy band in their bomber is crawling a couple of 100 feet above Russia, trying to deliver their bomb. And they realize they may go down. The list itself is an incredible narrative, and I've spent actually now probably 4 years on this project. It has come a long way. I managed to assemble a very large amount of the pieces, including that top center gold case that is an Arctic food rations. They clearly did a tremendous amount of really wonderful research about what would go in a survival pack, but there are many things in the survival pack that Slim Pickens lists that have never been put in a survival pack, and clearly Kubrick put them there for interesting reasons about the way we were supposed to think through how this bomber crew might survive upon landing. And in fact, my construction of Major Com's survival pack was included in an exhibit at the Museum of the Moving the image in Queens, New York for a show called Walkers. And so then, about a year after that, I encountered the Kubrick exhibition again, this time in Toronto. It went to the Toronto International Film Festival building, and I was up there for a show, and I decided to go spend another few hours wandering around. And that's when I saw this. I saw the Shining Maze, and I was like, ooh, that looks really good. Maybe I'll go home and I'll make one of those. So I took some pictures. This is one of the pictures. There we go. That's the important picture anyway. See, I took this picture, and then I took it home, and I loaded up a screenshot that I had from the film, and there it is. And I was like, wait a minute. That doesn't look anything like that. That is so wrong. This is like someone described the maze to somebody's mom on the phone. And she wrote a post-it and someone built it from that. And here's how offended I am. Notice that the entrance to the Shining Maze is right below Jack right there. You see that little archway. But in this one, it's on the right, it's on the long side. Like, who is minding the store? So I went back to my shop and I made my own map of the maze because I wanted one that was accurate. And I spent an evening doing this on my kitchen table, and then I started making little trees and the pieces, and I developed the flocking technique, and slowly over the next month, I hand-built my own Shining Maze, which I then lent to the Kubrick exhibition and installed. And this is me and their conservators installing it as it arrived back here in San Francisco at the Jewish Contemporary Museum. There it is in all of its glory. And so this is specifically the 5th time I've gone through the exhibit in the 3rd city it's visited. And again, I found something that really captured me, and it was this. It was Stanley's director's chair, a simple folding chair of some wooden slats with 2 boxes on the side. And they said they had stenciled on them Stanley Kubrick. And this is a fairly iconic piece. This is Matthew Modine, who in addition to being an amazing actor, is also a wonderful photographer and the star of Kubrick's film Full Metal Jacket. This is a picture that Matthew Modine took on the set of Full Metal Jacket. And there's clearly a narrative going on about Stanley. He puts this thing up on a rock. And I saw this and I thought, well, as long as I have access to it, maybe I should take some pictures and think about making it. Here is Stanley sitting in that very chair. You can see the box on either side of him. So this is the director's chair that I grew up with. In America, this is what we call a director's chair. This thing that Stanley is sitting in, that is slightly a different format. If you notice, the standard director's chair that we have is just a simple pair of X's, whereas Stanley's has these uprights on the sides. And I started looking for these, and I couldn't find a single one. I searched every permutation of folding chair and director's chair I could. But then I realized, and this is one of the epiphanies that sometimes happen when I'm researching, Kubrick was in England. So I went and searched ebay.co.uk. And that's when I found that this kind of director's chair with the side slats that are up and down is very common over in England. Now, this isn't exactly the chair that he had, but at least I was warm. And so over the next several months, every few days, I would go to eBay and I would check. And eventually, after 8 months, I found this pair. And they are exactly the chairs that were used as the base for Kubrick's director's chair, up to and including, if you'll notice on the right, coming down from each arm is a wide, flat slat. There are a lot of different versions of these chairs, and this is the first that I found that had the exact same wide slat that Kubrick's chair had. Now, they didn't have the same finish, so I needed to strip them down. And I went to my shop assistant, Asa, and I asked him to strip them down, and as he was stripping them down, to his wonderful credit, and this is why I love him, he made me a diagram of all the ways in which the original chair was not like the director's chair. And, I mean, like, I'm like, you belong here in this shop, man. Several things I had spotted, but one was the, I can't remember if he, okay, so notice on the side here, on the chair on your left, the sides splay out a little bit. And this was one he said is very, very different because the uprights on the director's chair are completely vertical. I didn't think this was that big a problem, but that's also because at this moment when Asa was doing this, I hadn't put this whole chair in my head. I didn't think it was going to be that large a problem. So here is the chair as Asa had completely stripped it and was now about to give it a walnut stain. And while he was doing this, I decided to start going to look for pictures of Stanley sitting in chairs. I thought this might be instructive. And indeed, it really was. Back in Dr. Strangelove days, here is Kubrick sitting in clearly an early version of this same exact chair. There's another shot. Here is a picture of Kubrick's director's chair on the set of Dr. Strangelove. Notice that it already has a basket on one side. This was clearly something that was important to him to have access to his scripts. I'm looking for a double-sided basket, so we keep on going. Here he is on the set of 2001, talking to William Sylvester, who played Dr. Haywood Floyd. Again, we see the same kind of chair, and now we see the basket on the side, and we can see that the sides are splayed. So maybe I don't have to modify this chair, because this is looking pretty good. We move forward in time. This is The Shining. Well, now he's in a wicker chair. I've seen this wicker chair in many films, but the salient thing is, look, there's a basket on the side. Here he is with Jack. Oh, notice, Jack is sitting in what might be the chair I've seen in a couple of movies before. Here's the thing you need to know about Kubrick. He loved producing movies, and all the aspects of producing movies just as much as directing them, just as much as writing them, just as much as visual iconography and story. He also loved the process. And a friend of mine was a person that he called in the middle of the night. He was famous for calling people and talking to them for hours and absorbing what they knew. And a friend of mine was the recipient of a few of these calls and said that one thing Stanley wanted to talk about all the time was just how to save money. He was very, very frugal. And he said to my friend John, do you own the craft services wagons on your sets? And my friend John said, no, I don't. And Kubrick said, it's a very great profit center for me. You should really consider it. I'm able to shoot for longer because I'm making more money from my crew selling them their meals. He also told my friend how he wrote his own insurance riders to be able to get an extra day of shooting for every day that it rained, whether they were filming or not. And so this is a long way of saying that it's clear to me, looking at these photos, that Kubrick had a warehouse full of chairs, and he would just bring them out for each film he was using. I've seen the same chairs. This wicker chair has shown up in 4 different movies. Here he is on the set of Eyes Wide Shut, talking to Tom and Nicole. Now, these are American directors' chairs, but they still have the pouches on the side. Here is Matthew Modine sitting again in a one-pouched chair on the set of Eyes Wide Shut. And here again is his iconic shot of a chair that I wanted to replicate. And now I realized that, yeah, indeed, I was going to have to take this chair apart in order to make it accurate. It was the baskets weren't fitting on the side. It wasn't sitting the way the original was sitting. And so even after having the whole thing stripped down, and I could have done this in a much easier way earlier, I took this entire chair apart down to its root components. I pulled every rivet out, I pulled every bolt, I re-drilled, you can see there on the backs of the arms, I re-drilled the holes for the doweling because those arm positions had to move. And I started to put this back together. Here are the 4 arms assembled. I had 2 chairs as bases. I figured I might as well make 2 as I'm going along. And one of the things that's happening as I'm starting to do this is I'm starting to notice artifacts on my chair from the deconstruction and reconstruction that I can see in close-ups of Stanley's chair. So there's a project that he had somebody do 40, 50 years ago that I am now replicating, and the witness marks of the damage that I'm causing as I'm taking this apart, putting them back together, are still on his chair. So again, I'm going deeper into the accuracy than I've ever been before. I took orthographic shots of both sides of the baskets because because I suspected this and I was totally right when I got to Photoshop, is that the holes are totally different. Look at that. These holes were cut by someone who was freehanding and no one was paying attention. This is awesome. I then used this lettering printed out full size as a stencil. So here are my 4 baskets that are mostly ready to go. You notice I've added the black paint. I've added it inexpertly because the original wasn't painted very well. And I've cut out the actual Stanley Kubrick. Luckily, it was the same on both sides. I was prepared to do it twice. It was the same on both sides for applying the stencil letter. Oh, a note here about this plywood. Okay, so the Kubrick family was gracious enough to give me permission to spend a couple of hours. Norm Chan took some incredible photos of the chair really up close, and I was able to determine that the kind of plywood used for the sides of those baskets was not a standard multi-ply plywood, but a very simple, inexpensive kind of plywood called Luan. It's just two veneers sandwiching the wooden core. It's very inexpensive, it's very lightweight. The problem I had was I went down to Baronio Lumber, and I also went to McBeath Hardwoods, and I wasted a lot of their time pulling out different sheets of Luan, trying to find a grain pattern that was close to the original. I know, I wanted the figures to work. And then I was in England with some friends of ours at FBFX, and I saw a piece of Luan they had there, and its figures were much more interesting, clearly, because this was English Luan, not American Luan. So they were shipping me something. I had them actually slice up this piece of plywood and put it in the shipping box so I could use it for the sides of my Cougar chair. And here is we're near the end. Oh, I do want to point out, the insides of the box, under the handles, was also painted black, but not all the way to the top. This is a great detail. This tells me that the inside of these baskets was painted black after those things were assembled. That is my assumption. And I find myself wondering if Stanley going, oh, Mark, could you paint the insides of these black? It's distracting me. Who knows why they're painted like that? But I did it the same way. I assembled them and then I painted the insides black. I also want to point out that as I found this really heavy cotton duct to use as the canvas for the back and the seat, and I dyed it with grit dye, and got the color really, really awesomely close, and then I discovered that I sewed the seats wrong. So I had to make a new batch of dye that matched the old batch of dye. Oh, I actually had to put everything away for about a week just to kind of stew with that one. Because the idea of mixing a new batch of dye that was going to match the old batch of dye was like, oh, you can't even see when it's wet. You have to dye it and hope and then watch it dry and be like, no, I have to do it again. But it took 3 dyeing batches to get it correct. But ultimately, I will also tell you that these metal struts that hold this thing together, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 of them on each chair, but 2 of them are bent in order to accommodate a spatial characteristic of the old chair. But on the new arrangement that Kubrick's handing in did, they're all straight. So I straightened them out, welded up their holes, and re-drilled them to use the same kind of steel. I also, does it seem obsessed enough? I also, on the underside of where the seat attaches to the wood, counted the number of upholstery pins and matched it. There's one of the bent ones before. I even went so far as to carefully hand etch the flower in the 2 upholstery pins that are on either side of the chair when I couldn't, after dozens of hours of searching, find a single floral upholstery pin that matched. Here are the complete. Would you like to see the original? Here's my final Stanley Kubrick director's chair. Let's see. There it is. Okay, here we go. This is the first time I'm showing this publicly. So I made 2 of these, and I gave one of them to my friend Lee Unkrich, who directed the new Pixar movie Coco, which, by the way, is mind-blowingly great. You should go see it, because it should go to another Kubrick fanatic, and he should have, this now sits in, this chair lives in my bedroom. And also, because the baskets need scripts, I actually found some PDFs of original scripts of Stanley Kubrick, and so this is Dr. Strangelove. I even bought 1960s era screenplay covers in order to make it totally accurate. And that is a little bit about the level of detail that I will go to achieve a prop. Thank you very much.